This is the Garden of English. I'm Tim Freitas, and today we're going to talk about using Parlay for things other than AP Lang Review. We'll talk about how to use it for lit and how to use it for live discussions. And we brought in a pro to help us with this one, so we hope you check it out. All right, welcome back to the Garden of English, and today I am thrilled to have a very special guest with me, and her name is Amanda, but we'll let her introduce herself in just a moment. And I'm thrilled because she's going to help us with some stuff that relates to Parlay. Before we do that, though, I want to just point out two things here. First of all, a huge shout out to Parlay for actually sponsoring this video. So please make sure that after you watch this, you do go check them out and see what they can do for your classroom. I'd also like you to look like right over here. I don't know, maybe here or here, right? But I want to also give a shout out to the Garden of English's Patreon supporters. We do appreciate the support that they offer us each month. And there are some benefits that actually go with that. So I'm going to encourage you to check out what the tiers, the budget-friendly tiers are at Patreon to see what you can actually get from us for free in order to help you and your classroom. And if you don't want to, that's fine too, because these videos are free. But we do appreciate your support, and especially for the people that are listed right up here. And we're looking to continue to see that grow. So anyway, now that we've said all those good things, Amanda, why don't you tell us about you? Tell us about what you have on the internet for us and resources that we can actually have, and then we'll start talking about Parlay in our classroom in ways that I don't necessarily do Parlay. So take it away.
Well, hi, Tim. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, Tim's lovely audience. I'm so happy to be here today. My name is Amanda Cardenas. I am a high school English teacher of 13 years, I think, at this point, and I have seen a full range spectrum of students. I currently work with every single level of English, all the way right now from the English language learner level all the way to the AP Lang level. So I am seeing on an average day every single kid that walks across the stage of this school. So I love, yes, the whole spectrum. And I also am teaching currently in a hybrid model. So I'm seeing not only all kinds of kids, but in all kinds of ways. So it's been quite the year. But in what I'm not teaching, I work for myself on a little side hustle. I love English and I love teaching so much that I built the website mudandteaching.org, where I try to help teachers take chances in their classrooms and do things that are a little adventurous and a little bit different from what traditional English teaching looks like. So I try to build a space to cultivate adventurous teaching over there on my website, and that kind of trickles out into my Instagram, and I have a Teachers Pay Teacher store. And then my girlfriend, Marie, and I just put out a podcast. We're in our first year of podcasting, and that's also in the same vein. It's called Brave New Teaching. And that's what we're up to, Tim.
And is there a link to your podcast on your website too?
Oh yeah, we're hyperlinked to each other all over the place.
Beautiful. And we're also going to make sure that all those hyperlinks are found right below in the description. And the reason why, of course, is because we are both trying to get you all as many resources as we can in your hands to produce a thoughtful, delightful, and beautiful growing classroom. Excellent.
That's the plan.
So I really appreciate you coming on. As you well know, I've already mentioned that. But really, the reason why I asked you to come on here, Amanda, is because I have teachers, ever since the Garden of English kind of like started working with Parlay and producing right now just review units, but we're going to work on building that that relationship further in the future. But right now we're just doing review units, and I've done a couple demonstrations at the beginning of some of my synthesis videos about like, here's how I actually do peer editing in Parlay, here's how I do a couple other things. I've had teachers reach out to me and say, ask me other questions about Parlay for things that I don't actually necessarily do. Like I do very AP Langish and peer editing stuff in my Parlay classroom, and I don't do a lot of lit stuff in my, what I do online in Parlay. And I've never actually done a live roundtable. And then I found you on Instagram, and I was like, wow, I'm pretty sure that Amanda's done like everything, not just with Parlay, but I think everything everywhere. And so because of that, I was hoping that I will shut up for most of this video, and you could actually walk us through what you do for literature with Parlay and how kind of versatile it is with other platforms that you use. And then we'll actually talk about what a live roundtable kind of looks like. And then we'll just be like, hey, so here are other options of what Parlay can do And if anybody knows, if interested in Parlay, we have an affiliate link right down below that you can click into
Yes.
to see how you can actually access that, because there is a free trial there, and they actually give you a lot for free to even try that out. But so yeah, why don't you teach us how to use it?
Well, okay, so why don't we start with what's most fresh? I've been using Parlay now for probably over a year. So I'll start with what we're doing now because the context is fresh and that's what we're in the midst of. So I'm going to go ahead just and log in to show you guys what the platform looks like and how I've been using it with my class. It's a nice single sign on so kids can use their Google accounts or whatever school accounts are the most accessible. And I was able to import my classes really simply through Google Classroom. And so you can see I've got my classes are right here and ready to go. So currently in my English 3 class, we are studying A Raisin in the Sun. And again, we're doing that in a hybrid model. So class discussion is rough to say the
Practically
very least.
non-existent, I'm willing to bet. Yeah.
It's very rough.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of teacher that prefers not to do some kind of study guide option or
I know.
worksheet questions. I just, it's not part of my philosophy. You know, we're very essential question driven. We're very, big concepts driven.
Yeah.
And so discussion always has been the best way to get there. So that's kind of where Parlay comes in. And so the way that we've been studying Raisin is we're actually studying the film adaptation this time around.
Oh, very cool.
There are some yeah. So, well, I thought it would be a nice opportunity to do that because kids can have access to that film at home. They watch it. I kind of chunked out the time stamps for them, the act and the scene numbers. So, pretty much the plan for the during reading experience for the students has been to watch their assigned section. So, let's say Act 1, Scene 1, it's about 35 minutes long. They'll watch it, and then as soon as that section is over, I send them directly into Parlay. So I have them watching it in Actively Learn, which is another tutorial for another day. But basically, they just go straight out of the video, and you could do this in Classroom too. Like you could just post the video and then your link to Parlay, and as soon as they're done watching it, boom, they're like right into discussion. There's no note taking, no worksheeting, no nothing. They're just immediately jumping into conversation.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing right now.
All right.
So let's pull that up. So you can see over here where we are. We have done 4 of them so far.
Wow. Well, now hold on. I got to make a comment here.
Go right ahead.
You've got Albert Einstein and Florence Nightingale in your class. That is something. And Frederick Douglass and Anne Frank. Wow, you've got the who's who here.
Aristotle's here. I mean, I've got the whole. I mean, happy birthday, Frederick Douglass. I mean,
yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, how did I forget about that? Absolutely.
We had a big celebration. But so that is, right, Tim, you bring up one of my favorite features, especially in this, building classroom community has been really hard at a distance and in this kind of in and out situation that we've been in with our classroom. And so having anonymity for students has actually raised their levels of confidence and made participation improve quite a bit. So students, when they log in, they're assigned an alias. And I think if I remember correctly, when the students go in, they get a little description of who their person was. So they get to even know who they were.
Yeah, they have to actually click on it. If they don't click on it, they won't know. But
they have to take another step.
Yeah.
So here are all of my students. They're over here on the left. I can toggle through my 4 different discussions we've got going on right here. So Act 1, Scene 1's here, and then so on and so forth. So that's all ready to go, which is pretty sweet. And let me show you what this one, since we're here, looks like. So my description is kind of small. I just need to click on it to open up the full prompt that I've written for my students.
Now, before you actually continue with the prompt,
sure.
Can you just click the invite button for just one moment? We just want to show teachers what that looks like here. You can actually give kids a share code that they can enter in on the front page of Parlay, or you can actually give them a link that has the share code built in, so kids can just log right in with whatever their school email is, because you'll notice that it actually interacts with Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So this is really easy. There's really very little that anybody has to do. Parlay sets up almost all of that for you. But anyway, let's go back to actual learning activities. I'm super sorry for interrupting. I just want people to see that.
No, there's a lot of features that I forget to mention because I'm just doing it,
Yeah.
So no, that's really, really great. So this prompt that I set up is pretty close to I copy and pasted did most of it. So I'm doing
Yeah.
pretty much the same prompt every time, and I'm changing out the questions. So
Yeah.
this will say here, what we're doing. It's Act Two, Scene One. This is our goal. We're looking at this essential question: to what extent does history impact the present?
Ah,
Um,
what a great question too.
yeah.
That kind of universal question. Um, because like even just look at the two questions that are here. Discuss the rising actions that are leading us towards the climax of the play. So we've got this
Yeah.
idea of here. Let's talk about things going on in the story. But that
Yes.
second question being, to what extent does history impact the present, right? In terms of even just our lives. And when you go from the
Yes.
play to the universal, I mean, that's just delightful. But anyway, sorry,
It's
I'm
so
like
it's
geeking out
well,
over
it's
here.
so helpful, Tim. It makes, and I think this question especially, we've been looking a lot at the context of, of racial discrimination and what's going on in the context, but also like historically, all the way back, we've looked at, everything, from Frederick Douglass, happy
Yeah,
birthday, all the way kind of down. And it really helps you understand Walter Lee in a
yeah.
whole new way. So yes, that's really, really important. So you can see we've got the timestamp here for what the kids watched. This is also linked for kids. So there's a live link for them. They can go straight into the video. And my discussion questions are there's only, I think I only have two of them this time. And so the first question I've posed here, I asked the kids to choose one of the two. So I asked them a little bit about, again, this historical context, how does history impact how you understand Walter and his
Yeah.
frustration with the denial of his American dream. And
Hmm.
then secondly, I asked them to learn a little bit about what microaggressions are and how that presents itself through Carl Lindner's appearance
Yeah.
in this moment of the play as well. So two huge questions that to me are way more important than a worksheet or a study guide. And
Absolutely.
so Parlay gives me the chance to pose those to the students, and then they can jump in and respond.
Not only that, but I think about even just looking at this, being able to link the movie in. You could put the link there,
Yes.
and then you clearly embedded the YouTube video right here, so it's all in one spot
Yes.
consistently. And then let's say I really love this. Am I able to contact you and all of a sudden be like, hey, how can I access yours so I don't have to rewrite, rewrite, reinvent the wheel?
So
Um,
I've been adding mine to the Parlay universe, which I think
right,
is probably I can show you guys later, but I'm putting all of mine in there as I create them. So but probably by the time you see this video, they should all be in there. And
right.
you should be able to find them. Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's so excellent. And
Yeah.
so we could, yeah. So there's a way that we can actually share. We don't have to reinvent the wheel if we don't want
No.
to, and we could change things out just a little bit. So, all right. So if the kids choose one, where do we go next after that?
All right. So I'm going to minimize my stuff here. I think if I remember where to click here. All right. Let's just go to responses.
Yeah. If you could
So
just
the
click on
kids,
anyone.
the kids come right in here. Italo Calvino up first, clearly. So I can maximize this person's. And here's where my student presented the answer. And here is where, well, the students commented on my student's comment.
Yep.
So, which is really, really nice to hear because I can kind of have the conversation is interactive.
Hmm.
So the student provided, this response. There are prompts here for how kids can interact with that student's answer.
Yep.
I also can switch over here to the assessment tab and provide feedback directly to Italo Calvino.
Yep.
With their response. So I can use that here if I'd like to. I haven't yet. I just assigned this, I think, on Thursday. So
Yeah.
don't judge me.
Please,
And
I'm like I'm a 3 weeker for grades.
I'm
All my
so
students
well,
know, and I tell them all the time. Look, you have your choice. You can have really well planned lessons where you'll learn skills and your grades will come back fine, or you can have numbers in a spreadsheet. Like, which one do you want? We can only do so much as teachers, especially teachers during the hybrid COVID, at home, sometimes in school model. I mean, it's chaotic, right?
yes,
Yeah.
it is. It's so much. And so I think what's really interesting too about this is a great example. I did not pick this ahead of time, but this student gave a very thoughtful answer using evidence and really
Yeah.
tries to get at what the microaggressions are. And then the commentary is pretty weak, like really weak here. I
Yeah.
agree. Yes, I agree. So what's nice here is that these provide additional teaching points for me during the week,
Yeah.
right? So I can pull this up and say, all right, let's look again. I thought this answer was really amazing. I can actually even tell a student that. I can star particularly strong model responses.
Yeah.
So I can say here, I really appreciate the use of evidence. And I can fix my spelling in a minute.
Yeah. Oh yeah, please. That
So,
no big deal.
right. So boom, look at that. So then I can add that. And now when students go to make a response, they'll see this pop up first as a model response.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, again, there's a lot of teaching points, not only in the content, but in how to have a discussion,
Yep.
that this is not going to do it. I could give this a high five, but I won't.
Yeah.
Not now. You got to earn my high fives.
Yeah.
And then we can collapse and keep going. So there's lots more to look at.
If you could scroll back up for just a minute to where your assignment actually showed up.
Of course.
When it comes to the peer feedback instructions, just down just a little bit.
Oh yeah, right here.
There we go. Right.
Yep, this one.
The peer feedback instructions. I think if we wanted to, we can edit all of those, right?
Oh yeah.
Editing those, we could say, look, your response has to be at least the same length as your peer's response, or something, or pull quotes from your peer's response or things like that. So there's a lot that we could totally do here, and really the customizability seems to just be delightful. So now, in not having discussions in your class per se because you're hybrid, how has that actually helped by putting it into something like this?
Well, because I think it's the interaction, even if they're not awesome, like here's one that's a little bit better. And what it's done too, Tim, is I'm able to scroll through and find conversations that happened on Parlay and then bring them into a live meeting. So I can say, okay, awesome. You guys got started here on this conversation. I want to read it to you. Let's look at this one. Yeah. And now let's open it up to the whole class. Like let's keep going now that we're here together. Yeah. And so it's a great starting point for continuing the conversation.
So we don't have to contain it in Parlay. We can actually
right
on out. Yeah, that's
springboard. Great. Yeah, awesome. Springboard it.
Yeah. And so that's really really excellent. And so you just do the same thing as you go through the novel. I'm sorry,
pretty much
as you go through, because you're watching the movie right now too, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so as you go through the play and the movie and whatnot, you just consistently kind of doing the same type of element here. The kids get used to it.
Same thing.
I think, even for me, if I have a student who's going to have to stay home for some reason, if they know that there's an online discussion, okay, well, I know what my assignment is for the day. And although being in the classroom would certainly be better, at least there's something critically thoughtful here. Now, I do have a quick question here. I know that you have the option of choose one question or choose another question. Do you ever require your students, if they choose one answer, do you make them find someone who responded to a different response and then provide the comment on that one, so that you make sure that they're kind of getting through all of the content? Or is that something that you haven't really done yet?
So I'll answer it in a couple of ways. Yeah. No, I have not in this particular circumstance, because my thought in the reason I'm using Parlay right now is as a starting point and as a consistent practice. So I don't think I have the wherewithal to fulfill the back end of making sure that happens. So right now I'm mostly interested in getting a collaborative discussion started.
Yes.
I have done what you're describing when it's a standalone, because we're discussing this 2 times a week. To do that much work on just one Parlay feels to me a little bit daunting. But yes, I've done. So I don't know if you can see it in this particular class. You can't. We did it. So my AP Lang class last year did a discussion on Between the World and Me.
Yep.
And it was the setup was completely different, which is what's so great about Parlay. You set it up to the depth and expectations of what your class can handle at that time of the year, the text that you're working with. I mean, all of that is possible and adaptable within the system. So this is really set up as a watch it, respond, let's make sure that we're all on the same page. And it kind of takes care of a lot of the plot pieces too, that I don't like to really cover plot so much in class. I like to get into the bigger questions. So this is more of a tool, I'd say, than what you're getting at, which is brilliant, by the way.
So because that's just one of the things that I was thinking. If I have the kids require, I might even at some point I have the opportunity to require half the class answer one question, half the class answer the other, and then respond to the other person's responses for the question that wasn't answered, if I have to cover all of that content, right?
Yes.
And so that's just something I was thinking of off the top of my head, and I was wondering if you've ever done that. But it doesn't mean that it's not something we're trying if it hasn't been done yet. So just as just tossing it out there and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, all right. So they've got all of these kind of online resources here. You showed us how it looks with the raisin in the sun. And I'm going to ask that we actually shift to the idea of the live classroom discussion.
Sure.
But when we do, on your way over, talk about how Parlay interacts with other, learning management systems that you've interacted with.
So I have basically used I've used Parlay with a lot of things. Like I've had students in my ESL class. I will have them read one or two articles on Newsella. I love the Newsella feature and how they're able to modify Lexile levels for kids
Yeah.
like on the spot. So I have a pretty mixed, wide variety of reading levels in that
Yeah.
class. So I'm able to have them read the same ish article
Yep.
in Newsella and then jump out into a discussion with what they do know. They can participate and share. So
Yeah.
Newsella's been great. I mentioned earlier, Actively Learn. Actively Learn is a similar to Newsella, but a little bit more focused on actual full length text.
Yep.
So we read The Great Gatsby, an online version of Gatsby in Actively Learn. So again, from Actively Learn out into Parlay has been great. Pretty much anything that you want to use as a starting point, Parlay can be the end point, and that's been really
that's great.
nice. Mhm.
Especially with the way that they link through. So,
Yes.
all right. So tell us about the live roundtable because COVID's not going to be around forever. We're not going to have hybrid teaching forever, or well, hopefully not. I guess that's what I dream about at night. And I'm actually in a school that's in person, but even still, like we have to do some hybrid elements, and I'm just like, oh, someday we'll be able to get back. Like I've never had my desks in rows before in my life, and they've been in rows
Oh,
all
I
year, and I'm like,
know.
oh my goodness. But anyway, so assuming that at some point in our lives we'll be able to go back to the traditional classroom model where we've got our kids in front of us and we're building those face-to-face relationships and they can actually see my mouth and when I do have a beard and when I don't and things like that. I actually took my mask off the other day for a moment outside and someone was like, I didn't even know you had a beard, I was like, I hate it too, but it's there. But yeah, so what happens with a live roundtable?
Okay, so I will say a few things. First of all, this is a screenshot of what I've done with my kids, just because the live experience does have kids' names on it so that the kids can see who's participating.
Yeah.
And so the way that the live is functioning, there's a Parlay has a bunch of training videos that are awesome. So if you're nervous or hesitant, watch Parlay's training videos. They even have some student facing videos. That's how I taught my kids to use Parlay, is I showed them the video that Parlay made. So
Yeah.
there's no like real secret or mystery to figuring it all out. So definitely use their resources because they're really good and free.
Yeah.
They're on YouTube. Some places charge you for training videos, not Parlay.
Nope.
So that's like my kind of little caveat. But what you're looking at here is an idea that I had for doing a live discussion. So this is not full class. On the left-hand side of the screen, let's see if my mouse will do it. You can see that I have 3 groups. So I actually had 3 simultaneous discussions going on at the same time. So what Parlay does, like the function of Parlay in a live discussion, is like the secretary. That's what you think of Parlay as doing. It's doing the secretarial work of the discussion.
Yeah.
The kids are the ones talking and doing all of the real things. But what Parlay provides are the tools for tracking student involvement.
All right.
So the kids here that are listed on the left are the members of my small group. They were sitting at one table having a discussion on one topic. So I had 3 different topics going on that day.
Yeah.
And so what the students do is they can enter, this is kind of like a waiting room almost of kids. They call it tapping in, that want to speak. This is the who is currently speaking. So that person, you can drag that person's icon in there. Students can put themselves in this space on deck to speak next. So again, like I said, it's like secretarial work. It's helping the kids know and understand the flow of conversation.
Now they're all going to have their devices out, and so they'll all be able to see the room that they're in here, and then they can kind of move things around. Now, if I wanted to, could I actually assign? Let's say I've got my student who always talks way too much in these types of elements. Can I assign that student with the responsibility of managing this part? Like, hey, you can talk still, but you have to manage how people move and whatnot once you see students tap in or anything like that. Is
so
that
the
possible?
kids, sort of, the kids don't have that direct power.
Yep.
What the power they do have is here. I'd say there's a little icon of an ear.
Yep.
Students so it's a collective goal. So like collectively students would click on who they want to hear from next.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a social cue to help those kids know, like, okay, if people really want to hear from Leah next, I need to wait my turn.
Yeah.
And then as that person's talking, we can give kudos or like claps to that student as they're
Yeah.
speaking. And then to do like the removal, that's on me. I have the toggle to do that. So these buttons right here,
Yep.
I can manually add a student in and knock a student out.
Gotcha.
I can also, and you can't see it here, when I tap on the student, I can give them a private message. I can be giving them encouragement or get out. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Whatever the message needs to be.
But it doesn't
And
have
I
to
can
be.
also be live scoring them. So I can be grading them on a scale, right? Like they're on proficient to whatever, and they
Yeah.
can see their score changing as they participate.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. That's excellent.
So in this case, I wasn't really doing a lot of scoring. The reason I had the 3 groups at the same time is when this was all over, I was able to look at the data. So even though I was only shadowing maybe one group for 5 minutes, then I would switch.
Yep.
Normally in a classroom, I would do that anyway. I just kind of listen in a little at a time. But as I moved on, this group kept up their data so that I knew who was participating when I wasn't there.
Right.
So I wasn't really doing an evaluative thing as much as I was more just kind of keeping an eye on the level across, right, the kids and how often they were participating.
Right. Right. And that actually gets documented by like where they tap in and whatnot, right? Where it says like tap
Yes.
in and then actually, so this idea of the polls right here, can you actually create a poll
Yes.
in the midst of the conversation and be like, okay,
Mhm.
who agrees with ABC to get some kind of like live data here? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
super fun types of things that you can actually add to make this highly interactive. Instead of, I think about the classic Socratic seminar, which totally works well, where you've got your outer circle,
Mhm.
your inner circle, and whatnot.
Yes.
But, this kind of new, maybe not new, but this 21st century take on a classic model that has already worked really well in classrooms. So, yeah, no, this is awesome. So, can we check out what the data looks like that you could pull from this?
Yeah, and I actually before I forgot to mention too that I have not personally done it, but I have had teacher friends of mine say that they have used this in hybrid, and so
Really?
it works. That it works great. So if you imagine, like, let's say you have your Google Meet or your Zoom, whatever, open, it's everyone is live, even though they're not all together.
Right.
So you're still going to get everyone's names here. You're still going to get the tap ins and the tap outs, and
Yeah.
you just have everyone just does the mute and unmute thing as they go, and it's been great. They said, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm thinking about maybe doing like that as my concluding discussion with Raisin, is doing a hybrid live here. So stay tuned. I'll try to
Right.
post
Yeah.
something about it on my blog, but I don't think it's as hard as it is in my head. But I guess everyone just logs in and you just start talking the way
Well, I
you
mean,
would normally.
If we have a projector and all the faces are projected up front, people are just unmuting.
Right.
I mean, I guess it does make perfect sense.
Right?
I think the hardest part though is that I don't know about your students, but my students, whenever we have to go remote, I know we've been face to face, but we've had a couple weeks where we've had to go remote just to deal with a couple little issues. I feel like a lot of times students, when we're remote, automatically it's like camera off and
Oh
muted,
yeah.
and I talk to my kids when we're remote, and in front of me they'll talk to me out the wazoo. The second we're
Yep.
remote, I'm like, how do you guys all feel? And all they ever do is, and I'm
Right.
like, guys, all you need to do
Right.
is like press your space bar and then say, we're fine, Freitas, that kind
Right.
of a thing.
So here's where we get to see some data,
Yeah.
which is sometimes really useful and sometimes not. Especially, I'd say like the first couple of times that you use the Parlay Live, I don't think the kids realize how much data is being collected on them until you share it. So
Yeah.
I've got the participation rate, which again can be inaccurate. Like if you have a full student class list and kids were absent, like that's gonna
Right.
play into that a little bit. There is some cool data here about how often kids were involved.
So this is our micro version of the social dilemma parlay style, I guess. Yeah. All that data
Yes,
collection. Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
We have tap-ins per student, and this is a really interesting one. I know we were talking about this earlier, Tim.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate this data right here because, when we quantify the new ideas, the challenges, the build-ons, the questions and whatnot, this is one of those moments where I think it's important to get data in front of kids and have them even reflect on the conversation that they just had. Because we can now ask this question: to what extent does the data that we can actually see here, because there are no names that are tied to this right now, so this is easy stuff to kind of present. To what extent does this actually accurately represent the conversation? I mean,
Yeah.
22 new ideas, 17 challenges. That makes it seem like our conversation was predominantly, I don't want to say balanced because there's clearly like a 5 step difference here between the new ideas and the challenges, but you know, did kids really feel like it was that balanced of a conversation as is represented by the numbers? You know, or that almost balance, and you know, getting kids to kind of think of, you know, where does data actually not, where is it not able to convey what experience can? Because I feel
Yeah.
like we live in this kind of era where it's like, well, what's the data say? What's the data say? What's the data say? And a lot of experience is neglected, I guess, for the lack of a better term. And sometimes experience actually has a much better and more foundational understanding of what was really going on, right?
Yes, yes, completely.
Yeah.
And I think that the other thing on top of that conversation is just, what a Socratic seminar is so good for so many things with no tech and everyone just sitting and talking and just having, I mean, that's its own level of preparing yourself for the real world.
Right.
But what I like about Parlay as its own thing is I really like how it encourages kids to reflect on the discussion, because
Yeah.
all of these suggestions are based on this data in a way that kids can say, okay, so for our next conversation, let's try this or let's try that.
Right.
Or did we do a good job when we were challenging? Were we respectful in our challenges?
Right.
Were they purposeful or were they redundant? That's the other thing that's not measured is how many of these ideas were actually new and how many of them were kids
Yeah.
that,
Right. You know, and just
so
getting these reflections out there, you know, and the questions, you know, what can we remember the questions that were asked? Did we get answers to those questions? You
right.
know, all of those things coming through. So,
And that's
um,
good. I like kids like reflecting on themselves as discussion participants, because
right.
that's a skill that's often overlooked and it's hard to assess, but I think
Yeah.
Parlay makes that a lot more feasible.
Right, and if we get kids thinking about it now, we might not have to worry about them being belligerent when they go out into the real world and they have
Let's
an idea about something. You know, they're more active learners. They see somebody tap in with a challenge. Now they have to actually invite that person into the conversation.
right.
You know, they have to wait their turn because they see that they're actually on deck. You know, it's not just, hey, let's just get in a shouting match like consistently, which is really something that we see a lot on TV from, you know, the people that are supposed to be ruling our country on both sides, you know, where it's like,
Yeah.
let's not listen, let's just speak at somebody. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, maybe we can use this in our classroom to really help get that kind of self-reflection going on, to help prepare kids to be able to communicate better with one another. So before I close things up here for today, is there anything else you want to say about Parlay?
You know what? I would say honestly, like if I offend anyone in my department who's watching this, I'm so sorry. But I, I offered to do this and like let other teachers come watch and check it out. And a lot of teachers were intimidated by Parlay, like the whole idea and the notion. So if you're feeling intimidated right now by what we went over, I urge you to shake that off and just give it a try. Like have a discussion about something silly just to
Yeah.
try it. And once you get going and get the hang of it, it's
How do
not
cats wear
as
pants, right?
well, right. I mean, it's really not as intimidating as maybe it feels at first, but I know, it might feel that way, but trust me, once you get in, you're gonna feel addicted and ready to use it in so many different ways.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, Amanda. Once again, I really appreciate that you were on here. Everybody, please check out all of the links that we have that link to Mud and Ink teaching down below, because really the stuff is just awesome. I was thrilled to
Thank
even come
you.
across it via social media. Amanda and I did not know each other before, and then when I reached out, thankfully she was like, "Yeah, let's do something. It'll be super fun." So if this video was helpful, we're going to ask that you click like and subscribe to the Garden of English because that's the easiest way that you can actually help us. We have some affiliate links down below, particularly an affiliate link to Parlay, so you're going to want to check that out. Anybody who's looking to do some AP Lang review and looking for some content and perhaps even like a textbook, right, that's actually really cheap, you can access that down below. I am a co-author, by the way, right? And so hopefully you know by now that you can trust the content that is in there. And we also have some other test and assessment affiliates down below as well for those of you that are looking to potentially take a mock exam to kind of see where your student skills are, or students, right, where your skills are before the exam day. So all of that is listed right down below. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram. And by the way, Amanda, what's your handle on Instagram?
I'm at Mud and Ink Teaching.
Mud and Ink Teaching. There it is. So you're going to want to check that out as well. And I appreciate your time, and I'm sure that we'll
Thank
be
you.
involved together again. In fact, I'm pretty sure that in just a couple minutes we're going to talk about your podcast and do something there. So looking forward to that. You all have a great day. And Amanda, once again, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Bye, everyone.